Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this panel. It's Empowering Naval Combat and Readiness, How Intelligent Small UAS Can Support Warfighters and Improve Readiness. My name is Justin Katz. I am a reporter at Breaking Defense. I primarily cover the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps. I'm going to try to facilitate this panel in the way that I think panels best run, which means as the moderator, I'm going to keep everything I say to a minimum and let these fine gentlemen share their expertise with you as much as possible. And then, of course, I believe they'll be happy to take questions as they come up. So a quick introduction to what we're going to be talking about today. Small UAS, obviously very popular subject with the U.S. Navy and with militaries around the world. And I think I've learned to never say never, but when we talk about small UAS with the U.S. Navy, we're usually talking about one of two mission sets, right? ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, or aerial resupply. What doesn't come up quite as frequently is this idea of how can a small UAS improve the workflow and the readiness of the shipyards. And that is why we have our friends from up north on this panel today at the Royal Canadian Navy who have done quite a bit of work in that area. So with that, I'm going to introduce my panelists here. Directly to my left is Justin Jordan. He is the Vice President of Federal Sales for Defense and Critical Infrastructure at Skydio. Skydio is a leading manufacturer of UAS, which provides drones to both civilian federal agencies as well as branches of the Pentagon. To Justin's left is Michael Cohen. He is the CEO of Key AI, which develops artificial intelligence software that is trained to intake, sort, and label data based on their customers' individual requirements. And last but certainly not least, on the far side is Rene Blais, whose name I hope I said correctly. He is the Halifax class platform manager for the Royal Canadian Navy. So to get this kind of kicked off, Rene being the end user of this panel, maybe you can kind of help us frame this discussion. Talk to us a little bit about what prompted the Royal Canadian Navy to start exploring the use of small UAS in shipyards, and tell us about kind of the challenges and the successes that you've had along the way.
Good morning. I'm the René Blais platform and manager for the Halifax class. First, congrats for finding Potomac 1 and 2 between C and D. Makes complete sense. So we face a lot of challenges in the Canadian Navy, where the U.S. Navy faces similar ones too. So with the life extension of an older class of ship, you need to figure out a way to be smarter, use technology, and leverage industry to assist you in doing that. So the Halifax class is planning to be extended for 10, 15 years until the new frigates come in. So then I had a lot of initiatives on the table and trying to push them. And as my wife would say, it would be great if you could finish a project once in a while. So I picked this one as a pretty well advanced and mature project that I think you'll enjoy. I think we can play the video now, please. So what you've seen here is an example of surveys we did on some of our ships. We fly the Skydio drone around the ship. It takes a couple of hundreds, thousands of pictures, and then we put it in an AI software from Key AI, and we're able to find all the corrosion visible on the upper deck. So if you kind of imagine sending a lot of surveyors on the upper decks, right, you need to shut down all the radars, all this stuff, it's impactful to the flow of work. And therefore, using this, it takes around 2-3 hours. You scan the whole ship, you go on your desk, and you finalize the survey of the ship through AI. Then we can do trending, tracking of corrosion, repair, remediation plan. And so no, it's been quite good. We're pretty close to full implementation regime at that point. And yeah, it's been quite a development. So from a tactical perspective, we've been trying to leverage the industry to support us in our challenges, and that's one example that we worked on.
So kind of jumping off that, and I think, Justin, this would be a good point for you to jump into the conversation. I think one of the benefits when militaries utilize commercially available technology is that by its very nature, commercially available technology always has a much lower barrier to entry, right, than some of the more specialized and advanced systems that sometimes militaries need to procure. So I guess maybe, Justin, if you could talk about that lower barrier to entry. I'm a comms major, which means I have no technical ability whatsoever. How long would it take for someone like myself to get trained up on the kind of small UAS that Renee is talking about? And then Renee, I'd be interested in hearing, has the Royal Canadian Navy taken advantage of that lower barrier to entry, to give sailors the opportunity to pilot these drones, and taking advantage of the fact that, again, these are not highly specialized platforms that require years of training.
Yeah, Justin, thanks a lot. Thanks everybody for coming. To get to that point, Skydio is a dual-use technology, right? So we have customers in the enterprise and public safety space, as well as the global government space, focusing on kind of MODs, MOIs, DODs, DOIs, those things, right? And then when you look at and you think about a naval ship, you kind of have all of that wrapped into one. You have a power generation source, you have something that needs physical security, and then you also have a strategic asset, right? So then we're able to leverage a Skydio drone to be able to cover all of our use cases in a single platform that's out at sea and functioning either independently or strategically with other assets of the like. From a training standpoint, to be a Skydio certified operator takes about 3 days. And what that does is, traditionally when you've flown drones, you've had sort of two people operating. One person is operating the air vehicle while the other person is operating the sensor. Well, what this is through our vision-based navigation, the drone can see and understand its environment, so that no matter whose hands it's in, you'll have a safe, secure, repeatable, and reproducible result that will be able to feed into Key AI's platform, so that you can get consistent results and understand as you're looking at potential problems, whether it be corrosion or battle damage or anything that you could interact with in that scenario. And by being able to do that, now you've empowered the sailors and the warfighters that are on those vessels to be able to execute multiple missions with a single-use platform.
Renee, did you want to hop in there? I mean, to what extent have you kind of brought sailors into this discussion and kind of utilized that lower barrier to entry?
So at the moment, we haven't used it extensively with sailors. We have a couple of trained pilots. The challenge we have too is we're, especially in Halifax, we're within the Shearwater airport range, so it adds a level of complexity to get the permits to fly. So there's been quite a bit of work, but now that we have everything in place, I really believe the next steps are going to be to train a lot more people. I'm not sure if you guys have kind of ever seen their drones in action, but it gets all its waypoints automatically. It's very impressive to see how that technology can enable multiple surveys, inspections, quite rapidly also. So yeah, training is short. It took me longer to actually get the permit to fly them, but no, it's been pretty good. They're not going to let me touch any drones at any given time. Hope that Justin could invite me one so I can fly it, but my guys will not.
Anytime you want.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good time for me to bring Michael into this a little bit. We have a proficient shipyard worker who's taken 3 days to learn how to operate operate a drone. We have the data. I guess, can you kind of walk us through the art of the possible with artificial intelligence and how it can help, Renee shipyards operate faster? I think, artificial intelligence gets thrown a lot when we talk about it in the military industrial complex, but it's not always explained the how and the why. So maybe if you could kind of go into, what is the bottom line effect that AI can have if you feed it, data from a drone?
It would be my pleasure. Why don't I start with technology, and then we'll go from technology digitization. Let's move over then to AI. Good morning. Thank you very much for your valuable time. It's a pleasure to be here. At Key AI, small technology company, Toronto, Canada-based, our mission is to digitize assets for the purpose of inspection work. So precisely what all of us went through with Zoom meetings and team meetings where we preferred in person, the idea of digitally meeting was impossible, then it became possible. Our mission is to say, why go in the field when we have the types of technology from drones to cameras that are high definition or video, thermal cameras? If we can collect all of that data, structure it properly, put it into your desktop computer, you don't have to go in the field. You can perform an inspection digitally or virtually. So it would be number one. Can we save on safety, on workforce, all of those things? I won't spend time because you understand them. The value of doing that from the comfort of your home rather than traveling to the asset in the field. And then secondly, we take an approach around artificial intelligence. We like the expression that AI won't replace you, but someone using AI will replace you. So when I think about this problem of asset inspections, trying to understand corrosion on a ship and quantify it, report on it, get someone to go paint it or cut it out, I can imagine two scenarios by which you've got an engineering company that's using bows and chairs and notebooks, or an engineering company that's adopted drone technology with virtual platforms. And the question I ask myself is, who now has the competitive advantage to provide a better outcome, product, result to the end user, faster, safer, and for less money? And it seems to me that the adopter of technology is doing that. And when we think about AI, we often think about AI just doing a job. We take a very different approach on industrial inspections like this. The inspector or the engineer is the end user of the digital platform. And like a platform like Grammarly, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with, this thing that suggests in the background that your grammar isn't quite right, your spelling isn't quite right, and makes suggestions to you to adopt or not adopt. So you're in the loop on your own writing. We take very much the same approach to AI. It should work as an assistant in the background that says, within this image I'm looking at, we think that the 2 square meters of corrosion, or we can make a distinction with staining or pitting, is in fact corrosion. Can you click, accept? And from that, of course, as we all understand, then we have an ability for the machine to start doing human-like thinking, learning what the use cases are like corrosion, and getting better and better at prediction. So we think very much about how do you make a platform so someone can use it in their home, understand all the corrosion on a ship, and have the efficiency and speed of something in the background doing a lot of the visual detection.
And I guess for the entire panel, what, as we were preparing for this, I now understand that, these kinds of small UAS are used in a lot of industrial inspection environments, name your pick. But I guess, could some of you speak to what it is about the environment of a shipyard that makes it suitable for this kind of work? Is it small spaces? Is it the fact that, you have very large superstructures and you have to, getting people into high places is not always a necessarily safe thing to do? Kind of what is it about the industrial environment that lends itself to this kind of use of small UAS? Renee, maybe you can start, based off your experience.
On a ship, especially during a repair period, there is a lot going on and a lot of interference and a lot of conflicting activities and stuff. So when you're capable to use a technology that doesn't impact any of the ongoing activities on board, then certainly it is a huge benefit. And then you use way less resources for that survey that can be readdressed somewhere else, right? And therefore, I really think there's quite a lot of opportunity in using drones to survey. Of course, those large external superstructures are great, but there's more and more technology advancement that do smaller space, that could do, a funnel inspection on the ship. So there's a lot of opportunities here to develop that technology and use it also in like smaller confined spaces. Just think of a fuel tank, right? You got to pump your tank. You got to prove it gas-free, send somebody in there, and then there's all sort of security things that you have to do, right? If you could send an unmanned vehicle down there to do an inspection, it has like you don't have like all of the safety piece of sending a person down there. So there are a lot of opportunities here with this technology.
And Michael or Justin, whoever wants to.
Yeah, I'll take a shot. I'll take a shot at this from the other side. I think this is probably Justin, and I'm going to tee you up on this. It's interesting to me that safety comes up around this all the time. The value of it, it seems very obvious to people, I think, in 2024. The discussions around ships are quite interesting to me of individuals that in their vocabulary professionally are ships and ballistic missiles and nuclear submarines, and yet a small UAS drone flying around these things poses a disproportionate risk. And I think that, and Justin, I'm happy to hand it over to you, we have about 10 years of track record with an ever-increasing sophisticated piece of equipment like drones. And the safety issue is very, very clear. We can expect almost always that this small plastic frangible piece of technology will operate safely and poses virtually, in any traditional risk matrix, poses virtually no risk to its operation and only gain in terms of data delivery.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's about the data collection, right? But where drones come in is they help eliminate the dull, dirty, and dangerous for people having to do it. And so when you put them in a very confined space where there's a lot of action, different people doing different jobs around the yard, we can define the box that the drone is operating in. It will see and avoid people and things in its way, and be able to get that scan as you need to. And then the operator can be doing a different job once he sets the drone in flight, or the person can take over control should something happen, right? So there are capabilities in place to make sure that there's not going to be any accidents. And again, because of the AI and because of how tightly tuned it is and what it's able to do with the 9 neural networks on board, whether it's Skydio or another thing, you need a smart sensor to be able to do this. It can't be a drone that's completely manually flown. It's got to be something that's going to empower the end user to be able to execute their capabilities at scale. And that's what we're able to do with this small platform and this sensor payload. But then when you couple that with well-trained sailors and AI tools to evaluate the data that's coming in on the background, you're going to make it more efficient across the maintenance continuum, whether that is import as it's going to the yards or dry dock, so that things can be properly planned and executed so that we can be as efficient as possible with a fleet that is very constrained on numbers and readiness and availability right now.
So as a reporter, I've learned to never say never, because as soon as you do, somebody will come up to you and tell you about the one use case you don't know about. So I'm going to word this carefully. In my observation of the U.S. Navy, it's not a common practice yet to use small UAS inside the shipyards for the purposes that you gentlemen are talking about. It might be in early stages, maybe some of the private yards are doing it, but it's not a terribly prolific practice. So Renee, I'm wondering how prolific is this practice for Royal Canadian Navy? When did you start doing this? And then for our industry panelists, maybe, is this a prolific practice for, other industrial environments? I guess I'm thinking of, bridges in particular seem like a reasonable spot. But, how widely used are small UAS for any kind of, large industrial environment? And maybe Renee, if you want to start.
So there's always the strategy, right? How can we do things better, smarter? How do we leverage technology in industry, right? And that's a strategy, but tactically speaking, how do we employ it to do actually something? And this is where I think we break some good grounds here in terms of applying this technology to a specific type of inspection. So from what I know, it's not very prolific at the moment, but I believe that with us establishing a survey regime in our fleet, I believe we'll gain a lot of experience and insight onto how we can use technology and enable future opportunities also.
So when you look at it, right, I'll start at the end and I'll work my way back to the beginning from your question, right? So as we've looked at doing inspection of things that have been difficult, where we've started from a BV loss, beyond visual line of sight type of scenario, has been around bridges and being able to do bridge inspections. And why that was difficult prior to Skydio kind of coming on the scene was that almost all UASs were completely dependent upon GPS. So once they got under the bridge, they lost GPS. So you needed to maintain sight as you were flying the thing. Skydios fly completely vision-based, so we don't rely on GPS. So as long as the drone can see, it can execute the mission, and you're not worried about that. So we've been able to get BV loss waivers in almost every state now from a DOT type of standpoint. Also, when you look at where these are being used at scale at large police forces, so when you think of drone as a first responder in New York City, in Las Vegas, in Oklahoma City, being able to pre-position drones in boxes and then call them up, or have the officers fly them and do that. Also in the utility space, pre-positioning drones around substations and being able to do that. Now, the law enforcement piece is a little different because they don't necessarily own that airspace. The utilities are pretty good because we'll keep those drones to about 100 feet above the ground. And so they'll be able to fly in and around their airspace. But those have been two of the barriers to entry, if you will, because most drones need to operate on GPS, and you need to get clearance in order to be able to fly them. So when you look at being able to go on military installations, lots of times they own their airspace. So that's where we can lean forward with drones. We have some early adopters to be able to execute and do this. It's been mostly T&E efforts, but all of the shipyards and repair facilities are looking to lean forward to be able to execute drone technology, because when you look at the CNO's latest guidance on being able to bring more warfighters to the fight, and a lot of those are going to need to be drones or robots to be able to do that, to increase that scale, to be able to meet the mission requirements of 2030 and beyond. You're going to need to be able to leverage a smart platform that's going to be able to empower your maintainers, your operators, and your warfighters to be able to do their mission more effectively in a repeatable and reproducible manner.
Michael, anything you wanted to add?
Sure, I'd love to. I'll inject a little contrarianism if I could. It's morning. Why not make it a little bit exciting? And I'm going to break my public speaking rule. I just made up this analogy, so I'll test drive it. The drone always gets the attention. It shouldn't get the attention. Let me explain. A drone carries a camera. You take a picture. Not until you print the picture, pick a frame, find a nail, put it on your wall, does it actually create value. In fact, the value of that picture only is realized when you have a guest over and you point to your beautiful daughter or your beautiful son and say, this is my family. That's when. And that is really what the value proposition of this is. Rather than just the technology, it's the data output, and then what are you doing with it? And I'll explain. Renee puts drones in the air, take a few thousand photographs. Good luck working inspection work with a few thousand photographs. Thankfully, there's people like my team that model it into 3D, make 2D available in a platform that you can review it. Renee puts engineers in front of that screen to review all of the AI or to find other deficiencies, mark those up. And the end result then is Renee's team publishes a report that says there's corrosion here on the ship, attaches a restoration on whether or not they're going to weld it or they're going to cut it out or scrape it or paint it. That goes to a position, a frame on the ship, deck location with a remediation. And so while you've got this discussion about, well, drone, the value to Renee is now I'm sending someone exactly to the point they need to get to with the work order that they need to be to accomplish the restoration on the ship. And I'm sure Justin and Renee would agree that in the discussion of any of the use cases, really it's once the picture's in a frame on the wall, that's where you decide the value that reverse engineers it to the right technology. In this case, the Skydio drone around ships is the right technology.
Yeah, and I wanted to piggyback on what you just said about, when using the combination of AI and the drone itself, you can get an image of what the problem is, and then you can send that image to whoever it is that needs to remediate it, right? And it's well known that the U.S. Navy is spending quite a lot of money right now to revamp the workflow of its public shipyards. So I think that workflow point is worth hammering on. When I first thought about this panel, the first thing that came to my mind and what Renee showed us was the application of corrosion on ships, which is obviously the bane of all sailors. But I guess what other applications, Renee, have you found for what you can use this technology to identify in a shipyard, and not just the ship, but maybe maybe a dry dock, maybe the facilities themselves. Kind of what have been the applications for this?
So, having been a sailor for 20 years, I'm seeing a lot of opportunities here. When you have damage control, let's say the ship hits a container or something, right? You're in the machinery control room. You have no windows. You have nothing to see out there. You send your survey, your people, to check what's going on, but it's very challenging to get the full picture. Just imagine having a button that you push, and the drone flies around the ship. An AI system could spot anything out of the ordinary, and you immediately get an external picture of the ship. I know that the Skydio team also puts an IR camera on their drone. Imagine for a man overboard, right? Instead of having to turn the ship and actually use your IR camera from the bridge top, you could immediately launch a drone, and then an AI system could search for the person and report to the ship while they're doing their turn, right? So now that we do own a couple of drones, there's a land of opportunities that is presented in front of me, and certainly I'm planning to use the resources from those two gentlemen to improve the use of that technology.
I would add to that, we look at the maintenance piece and sort of the sustainment piece, but you also look at the build piece, right? So from an aerometrology standpoint, as we're looking to sort of build the Tetris pieces together and making sure that those are lining up exactly right, we can build digital models that they can then go back and look at as they're going through the process of actually building the ships, right? And we've done some work with the guys up at Bath and Penn State as well. And then also from an additional use case, when you start talking about BBSS, and as those sailors are going from one to the other and understanding who's on the deck of the other ship, do those individuals have guns, what they're walking into prior to getting up there from because they may not have a strategic asset flying overhead to be able to give them that imagery. So having that organic imagery resident on the bow or to the people on the ship to be able to process information at or near real time is going to be key, whether it's a battle damage assessment or some type of tactical mission.
Well, I think I'll stay on theme just to make the point. If you can do an initial assessment, then you could do any number of follow-on assessments. While we've pointed out on the corrosion use case, you can identify corrosion. Any progress as the corrosion was restored, once recoded, you could gain that type of imagery. You could overlay that type of imagery in a commissioning sense and know that that work was in fact done. And then temporally, over time, you could easily add data sets. I mean, if it's Justin provides a tool that goes up within minutes and gets all this data with a short period of time and total ease, then let's scan the ship every month and understand where the coating is secure or perhaps where it's failing. And so that ability to now move from we detected corrosion, we're reacting to some sort of predictive state where we're understanding ahead of the game would be, I think, an important point.
Right, and I would also argue that, or add to that, when you're looking at contractors coming on and making sure that change orders and work has been done, and now you can properly document that as you're working with a lot of these large service providers throughout these yards would be very beneficial too. It would be a lot more efficient than kind of the paper trail that we have in place now.
I'll just throw in here if any of you have a question. I believe there's a mic on your left side, my right side of the room. So I guess maybe a future thinking question here. What about how these drones can be used when a ship is at sea, right? It's even more difficult to assess certain parts of the ship when you're underway. So I guess what are some of the possibilities there in terms of the access that these drones can provide to parts of the ship that are not going to be visible to sailors necessarily, and then also on the software side of it, to what extent do you need an operator necessarily monitoring that drone the whole time, and to what extent could you perhaps say, I want this drone to, take off and, do a 360 around the ship and then report back? And I'll just let any of you chew on that.
I'd love to hear what Renee would like.
So we did talk about it, right? We all know the at sea environment often involves wind, involves just rain, can involve all sorts of stuff that could impact the ability to fly a drone. At sea, there's also something called sea state, which you need to land a drone on a moving platform, right? We all know that landing helicopters on the flight deck is quite an evolution and quite a challenge. We have a little bit of a similar thing for the drone. So certainly being able to perform in this environment would be absolutely significant, a significant opportunity for the ships to use drones at sea. So I believe that as the technology evolves and as we get better at understanding the environment that the drone can fly in, we can improve the performance of it and ensure that we can actually use the drone in such an environment. The last thing I'm going to say is there's quite a bit of pre-programming that can be done with drones, which is, I believe, the key, is little to no user requirement, because we're busy doing something else and we want to know as soon as possible. So by being able to get that information without having to actually fly the drone would be absolutely key, in my opinion, to support that.
Justin, I've got two things for you. The Skydio is quite a unique product because it's a SLAM. It's a highly intelligent drone that can map its environment and then find its way through it. So I'll give you two things. Being a non-military, non-ship person, their first marketing video, they went into the recreational market years ago, Skydio, and their first marketing video was a guy on a single trail on his mountain bike going through the forest, and the drone knows to follow the rider and was maneuvering through trees down the path, completely 20 feet behind this rider. The video, circa 2018, was mind-blowing. Like, this is mind-blowing technology. The second thing that I'll offer you, I spend my relaxed evenings late at night thinking about sailing around the world. And there's lots of YouTube channels of people that are sailing around the world. I quite like these videos. The moment the sea is rough, the very first thing these YouTubers will do is put a drone up in the air. They get aerial shots of their ship. They hand catch it down. This is consumer grade $500 drones. If they can do it, I think anyone can.
Yep. Well noted. So from being able to do that, that's something that we're definitely engaged in. We from being able to, what we call it, dynamic launch and recovery, being able to get drones in the air in a dynamic environment, whether that is a SEAL swimming in to do it, an expeditionary landing and launching it from the sea, somebody in the back of a vehicle on a convoy, or someone on a ship being able to do it, or even a small rib. And so we've got some capabilities to be able to do that now, and we're working to refine those so that, again, it's 100% repeatable and reproducible in anyone's hands. As we work through that, to your point, the follow me feature on the S2, we can do that now. So when you're looking at some of your smaller ships and maybe you're doing a SAR mission or you're patrolling the coast, you can do a digital tether that basically offsets the drone, so it's flying along with you. The operator is not controlling the drone at all. He or she can take over at any point in time, but they have that sensor forward leaning that can then use the zoom capabilities of either the EO or the IR sensor in that to be able to understand if they're looking for somebody, whether they're trying to find them or they're trying to interdict with them. They will be able to do that. And from a hand launching capability, that's something we can do now, right? Like but we get into, as we look to scale across the Navy or really the DoD industrial base, it's an ORM standpoint, right? So like I've hand caught on boats that are rocking and doing that, but I'm not sure that the powers that be would sign off on it right now for our sailors to be doing it. So we're working to make it repeatable and reproducible in anyone's hands so that we can get that signature authority.
Justin, if you felt I was saying you should catch a drone as a military operation, I wasn't at all, but I just think these things are possible.
Yep.
So Renee, I guess, could you speak a little bit about kind of the bottom line of using small UAS in shipyards in terms of either time saved, money saved? What's been the ROI here on actually moving through and buying this technology and working with it?
So it's pretty much in its infancy now, but I'm planning this fiscal year, which started a couple of weeks ago in April, that we actually now have 3 drones, and we are well established with the key AI team that will be actually able to survey all of our ships and start a yearly trend and a yearly assessment of each ship. And we can also provide work packages to the ships. And corrosion is my biggest issue at the moment with those ships. We're spending quite a lot of money trying to remediate it, and certainly being proactive in the maintenance and the painting routines is going to be critical to extend the life of those ships. So although we haven't, like at this moment, gain either cost or gain less resources are needed, we're getting very, very close. And I believe that is going to show its ability to be established in a consistent survey regime in the fleet. And that's the plan for this year.
Justin, if I could, we've taken a look at this, and on the Halifax-class frigates, at something like about 70 meters with a beam of something like 20 meters. We think that a person between 2 and 3 hours could do a proper assessment of the entire ship's outer surface. So we think that's pretty compelling for a corrosion analysis.
I would say too, like that, and that's with one drone, right?
Absolutely.
How many drones are they doing that to get the 2 to 3 hours?
It
You're
was
asking
one
how many?
drone.
Yeah, so we could
Yep.
potentially bring 2 drones to bear.
Absolutely.
No, I'm sorry, the 2 to 3 hours is an inspector's or an engineer's time to review it digitally,
Oh, to review it digitally.
review the data package digitally.
So, I mean, we could fly the mission with multiple drones. We could set up geofences and be able to do that, right, to optimize the collection so we can get to the important piece, which is the data and the data analysis. And I think we're at a very challenging period, right? We've got near peer threats, and we're trying to build our capabilities to be able to support that both in Canada and the US. And you look at sort of this addition by subtraction game that we're trying to play of extending ships beyond their life, and then also taking some off, but we're not able to surge to build those as quickly as we would like, right? So we're trying to optimize in the middle, and one of the ways to do that is to automate and to be able to do that with autonomous workflows where you can leverage machines to be able to do the work more efficiently and effectively than some people can be able to do it, but empowering those people to be able to do other tasks. So we are building a capability set. So now it's a force multiplier across the maintenance continuum, so that as it's one of the major issues for Renee, he can get to the data that's produced by Key AI much quicker, so that we can get the maintainers on it and move out and more effectively get those assets out to where they need to be to increase operational readiness and increase sea power.
Understood. And, I think you kind of hit on a key point there that I hear from the U.S. Navy a lot is that, none of these unmanned systems are meant to replace the man. It's more to aid the man, or as the Navy would put it, man in the loop, or man-unmanned teaming, however you want to phrase it. Michael, I wanted to go back to you on the AI perspective, because again, I think there's an understanding that AI will aid the military, but again, it's somewhat unspoken in how that works. I know at Key AI, I was, looking it over, and there was this focus on using AI to train data in a way that is customizable to your customers' requirements. So I'm guessing maybe if you could speak a little bit about that, particularly in the context of Renee and in a shipyard.
Yeah, it'd be my pleasure. It's an interesting tagline for a session to put AI in that, but of course it's an extremely broad field. We're in the field of computer vision and machine learning. Within computer vision, corrosion's super interesting problem, because unlike Volkswagens or sheep, corrosion has an incredibly unique fingerprint. It's different every single time. And as we all know, that artificial intelligence like this requires a fair bit of data. Although it seems to me 5 years ago, we all learned that needed an enormous amount of data. In that interim, academics and industry have worked incredibly hard, really smart people, to figure out techniques to take and minimize the amount of data that you need. So actually, with a few hundred instances, and this would be an outline of corrosion, you can actually get really good results. So one image of one ship with some training, with a few hundred instances of corrosion, maybe 500, you can get into a confidence range that the tool is actually providing value. So my point would be this notion of, wow, we need, to scan 100 ships and we need 10,000 images is just old news. The second challenge around AI with these different use cases is in a lot of cases there isn't data to train, or the AI specialists like my team doesn't understand the problem. And the way we tackle this is the platform actually exists as what we refer to as a domain transfer platform. So every time that the user, the inspector who understands ships and understands exactly where equipment should be and where it is missing, what the surfaces should look like and what the surfaces deficiencies look like, the moment that they comment into the platform, they're essentially becoming training data scientists. They're transferring their domain of the use case into the platform. So we don't need to figure out how to be corrosion experts. What we need to do is put corrosion experts on the platform and say, hey, go look at all these problems. Tell us the severity, tell us the nature, level 1, 2, 3. We're going to outline it for us because that's our job, is to use computer vision to find it. But you're going to tell us what you know through decades of experience or years of experience, and then we'll create that as what we call ground truth, essentially a human observation that we can then train upon. And that provides any number of use cases. If you looked at a ship and saw a missing flotation device, missing a weather shield on the mast, those now become trainable use cases for us in the use of the platform.
Understood. And Justin, maybe from the Skydio perspective, when we talk about small UAS, I think particularly, today we're talking about Group 1, so, the smallest of drones. I'm wondering, when you understand a shipyard environment to an extent, so you know how hectic it can be, is the goal that a small UAS should be able to see and avoid any potential hazard that it'll face? Or is this more of a situation where, these drones are kind of meant to be attritable, as the DoD would say? If they take a hit, then it's not the end of the world for you or your customer. Kind of how do you think about that?
Yes, is the answer. We want them to be able to see and avoid objects and everything so that they're flying around, but they're not at a price point that if you were to lose a drone, it's a software-defined drone, so all the capabilities are in the software, and those licenses could be transferred. So like you would just need to buy another drone body, and so as we look at doing those, it's designed so that the end user can use them and push them to their limits and be able to do that, and not to have to worry about, oh, I've got this expensive thing and I don't want to break it, and then I want to have a go back to a little bit on Michael's question there. One of the things that I think where it gets really interesting with the data from the strategic standpoint is force projection. And by that I mean we're going to understand how the Atlantic versus the Adriatic versus the Pacific versus the Indian has different effects from a corrosion standpoint. And we may look at ship rotations and things like that as we're able to do this analysis, so that we can get more out of our fleets as we move forward. And using AI and data analytics tools like Key AI are going to give us that capability, but you're going to need systems that are going to be easy to operate no matter where you are.
And Renee, if I, again, kind of looking to the future, if you were kind of given, your way with things, kind of where do you want to see this technology go? Is, what's your wish list, so to speak, on, if you were given the freedom to do anything moving forward, kind of what's the direction you'd want to take it?
So pre-programming drones is very interesting. It can become your eyes and ears, can enable you to see the situation. The AI can really assist you in making the right decision through the analysis and of the information presented in front of you. So we're in a world where everything goes fast. The threats are fast. The enemy are getting faster, and we need to react to this. And the right ability to be able to react is to understand the environment, the situation that you're in a really quick and concise manner. And you need something to analyze that situation. So if we hit something at sea, I don't have time to actually go around the model and try to figure out where the problem is. I want an AI to say, this is not normal. You've hit something here. And then it enables you to go directly to the areas of concern and understand what's going on. So there's been quite a lot of chats about the Baltimore Bridge, and that would have been an absolute great case to actually have a drone readily available, right, to assess the situation very quickly, right? That gives you the ability to make better decisions. And I think that that's the future, is to have readily available drones, pre-programmed, and have an AI system that can support you in assessing a situation.
So Michael, Justin, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but Renee just told you what he wants. Is it doable?
100%. I mean, it's being able to have the drones out there and being able to preset automated missions based on the type of ship it's doing. That is something that is very doable in the near term. You know, we've got to kind of, from a policy standpoint, we have to get there. I think we're going to need to do some more manual or human kind of on the loop, not necessarily direct control at first, and then once leadership and people get comfortable with that, then we'll be able to do the completely automated flights. But 100%, we're committed to being able to do that. I think that's within the realm of the possible within the 12 to 18 month range.
Michael?
Well, I could only guess the answer is yes. Oil and gas today is very interested in oil and gas is being put under pressure to solve their methane leak problem. And so how do you do that? It's an invisible gas, hard to detect. You need to get an alert to someone in close to real time or real time. It seems to me that they're looking very, very hard in deploying a solution that has a drone in the box, which is a nest station, highly intelligent, opens up its doors, drone autonomously takes a route around oil tanks, storage tanks, carrying an optical gas imaging sensor or a laser methane sensor. And because the only way to detect that methane leak is through the movement of a plume that is invisible to the naked eye, you need onboarding computing. They're having success with that, which is good news for all of us. And so I can only imagine that real-time battle damage should be very doable.
So in these last few minutes that we have left, as a journalist, one thing you learn is that you never manage to ask all the questions that folks would like to answer or would like to give input on. So we always ask the same question at the end, which is what didn't I ask you? What do you want to tell these folks that I didn't provide you with a prompt? And I will let any of you start with that one.
I'll let the customer go first. I want to hear what he has to say.
It is a promising endeavor, I believe, and I am happy that from a tactical perspective, we now have a successful example of the use of that. So my bosses always say, leverage the industry, leverage the knowledge, right? But it's one thing to have a strategy. It's something else to put it in use. So now that we have that tactical ability to detect corrosion, I can only dream about like the next steps. And I really believe that this will become the next kind of generation of like assessment, survey, and then enabling better decisions.
Well, it's very simple for me. I would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity. I only pitched to Renee that your people walk the ship. They're going to stop walking the ship. We're going to use drones. They write on notebooks and tablets. They're not going to do that in the comfort of their own basement. They're going to use my platform to review the ship. They're going to like it, don't worry. And by the way, we're going to throw a whole bunch of AI in there to detect corrosion, and they're going to believe in it. What you need is someone with vision and bravery. Gives you a chance.
We're at the infancy of being able to leverage drone technology, and with some of the real world conflicts that have happened, a lot of military applications and even non-military applications have seen some of the power that a small UAS possesses and how it can change the game with what you're able to do from a tactical standpoint, but I also believe it can do that from an inspection standpoint. But as we look to complete the vision that is Replicator, and as we look to broaden the horizons and being able to use all of these drones, we don't have enough people to operate the drone. So we have to work to be able to build a network solution that can operate one to many, so that we can do that locally and remotely. You know, we have a capability right now where we can do remote operations. I could have one of my guys in the back of the room fire up a laptop, and you could fly a drone in California right now. But we need to be able to do that at scale, and you need smart sensors to be able to do that, so that we can give smart information to the platform so that they can ingest and infuse that in a proper way, so that we can have decision makers make those decisions in real-time environments. So in order to be able to move at scale, we need a network solution that's going to be able to support that. And so we need our customers to help us as we're trying to do those network solutions, because there's security and there's ease of use, and those don't always go hand in hand together. So we need to figure out a way to make that happen in an accelerated manner, and we're going to be able to win in the UAS space and be able to be more efficient as we look to drive maintenance and naval operations.
You guys have impeccable timing. It's just 11:30 now.
Is it?
Thank you to all of you for listening to us today. Thank you to my
Thank
panelists
you.
for taking the time, and thank you to Sea Space for providing the opportunity. Have a great day.